I do believe that for me, my mantra is this: the setback is the setup. And sometimes the thing that you want so badly, like, so I thought I wanted growth. The reason why you don't get it, my fellow entrepreneur who is struggling right now, is because you're not ready for it. And so rather than think, because it's easy, right? And the world wants you to think like, you can't make it, you can't do this. I would invite you to ask yourself this question. So this thing happened. What is the learning? Because if you are delayed, there is work that you need to do.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Welcome to another episode of the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. And in today's conversation, we're having a raw and honest conversation about something that I feel like every entrepreneur will face sooner or later, and that is setbacks. So the reality is, setbacks don't define you, but your comeback does. So maybe you've lost a major contract, had to rebuild from the ground up, or you found yourself questioning whether you should keep going. If this sounds familiar, then this episode is for you. So we're breaking down the art of pivoting, bouncing back stronger, and making smart moves that turn obstacles into opportunities. And to guide us through this, we have the incredible Melva LaJoy Legrand. Melva is an 8-time award-winning entrepreneur and nationally recognized leader in the live events industry. She's been featured in Forbes, Washingtonian, Black Enterprise, and Authority magazine, sharing her expertise on leadership, resilience, and business growth. But beyond her accolades, Melva LaJoy knows firsthand what it means to rebuild after a loss and come back even stronger. So today she's sharing her personal journey of nearly losing it all in business. And she's also going to share the key mindset shifts that helped her turn things around and the strategic moves that set her up for long-term success. And we're covering how to recognize when it's time to pivot, how to adapt in real time, and how to create a business model that can stand strong through any challenge. So if you're ready to stop dwelling on what went wrong and start focusing on how to make your next move your best move, just keep listening. So let's get into it. Melva LaJoy, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I am excited to have you on the show, and I know we chatted a little bit before we got started, and I'm loving the energy, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love your energy. Hi, everybody.
They're like, hey. So
yes, I felt that.
Yes. We are going to get into today's conversation all about pivoting and prospering and really turning setbacks into comebacks in business. And I know you have such a phenomenal story, and I would love it if you could just start by sharing a little bit about you, your journey, and what is it that you do in your business?
Sure. So once again, hi, everybody. I'm Melva LaJoy Legrand, and I am the proud owner and CEO of a comprehensive events management agency, LaJoy Plans. But let me tell you a little bit more about the LaJoy of it all. And I always like to start with the story of why we're called LaJoy Plans. Mm-hmm. So I am powered by and anchored in the love of my parents, my late father, Melvin, who I'm named after, and my mother, Joyce, who were partners in love for 55 years. And they very much wanted a big family and were unsuccessful in that pursuit because mom had 4 stillborns and 3 miscarriages. Mm. And when I was born, they said I was the love and joy, the LaJoy of their life. And so my origin story is that my first career was in education, lower education, college level, and I decided to transition into events management. And when I made that shift, I said it was the love and joy, the LaJoy of my professional life. And that is why we're called LaJoy Plans.
Oh my, that is
Is
such
that
a beauty.
good?
That is good. That's a good story.
It's
I
a true
love it.
story.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that even when you were talking and just about like the topic of today is understanding those setbacks and things that people deal with when they're pivoting, I want to start there and talk about your own experience with business setbacks as you were building and what it has taught you.
So I want to name that I think at this stage, people
Mm-hmm.
are looking at all of the success. But the reality is, and I'm grateful for it, like thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
But the reality is you don't get to the triumphs without the test. You do not
Mhm.
get to the triumphs without the test. And so for me, I'll just call out a couple of them. So I remember early on, I started this business on a hope and a prayer and a couple of bucks. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I didn't have a business plan, but what I do have is I have faith, I have grit, and I have a work ethic. I just talked about it. You just can't outwork me.
Hmm.
But one of my early contracts, I was working an event registration, and some people know this story. And a board member of this particular organization called me a delightful colored. He was like, I've never
What?
met a delightful colored. He said, I've never met a colored like you. And he was like, you're so articulate. I'm just, wow. And
Mm.
so the executive director of this particular organization pulled this gentleman aside because I was shell shocked, right? Like I needed
Yeah.
the work, but I didn't know how to respond and just shell shocked. So she pulls him aside and she says, this is not really how we talk to qualified individuals. Fast forward, that particular woman, because it was in her purview, gave me 3 years worth of contracts.
Mm.
3 years worth. Not
Wow.
because I am Black, but understand
Hmm.
I'm excellent first.
Right.
Another example of a setback was in 2019, after a life circumstance, I rebranded the business. And when I say rebranded, I want to be crystal clear for anyone who thinks you need to have all the money and all the things. I had none of that. I had a couple $1,000s. And again, let me say 2019, had a couple $1,000s. I was actually going to networking events, borrowing clothes from my cousin because I didn't have it.
Hmm.
And it was humbling because I would go to networking events in DC and people would look past me. I would say, hey, I'm Melva LaJoy, in a spirit
Hmm.
of connecting, and they would look past me. And
Wow.
I decided then that rather than be so concerned about the external validation or the community, that I would put my head down and I would just show up and do the work. And so this
Hmm.
version of LaJoy Plans, and what happened next was the business has grown every year. I rebuilt after I lost everything during COVID. As a business, we have won 8 awards. Just yesterday, I was announced as a Success Women of Influence. And so,
Yes.
thank you. And so, what I want
I
to
love
say
it.
to someone is like, what we think is a setback,
Yeah.
like, and I feel that, and it feels real, and it's hard because trust me, it wasn't fun to be in my home city and being looked past. But now I can see so clearly it was actually the setup. It was
Hmm.
actually the setup. And
Hmm.
the third example I'll give you, because I don't think people keep it real. I think they're
Yeah.
out here lying. Is in 2024, because what I want to show you is setbacks. If you are in business, know this: a setback is on the way, a test is on the way, but it's how you choose to view it and what you do next that separates those of us that have triumphs or success and those of us who just stay in the place, like stuck in the setback, right? So in 2024, I was getting ready to be, I guess you would say, be a boss. I was excited because I had been working behind the scenes for a couple of years on a contract that was going to be a multi-year agreement. Like I was going to have to hire people. I was pumped.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 4 days or 2 days before I was getting ready to make the announcement to my team, I would learn that that company was filing for bankruptcy.
Wow.
And in order to persist, I made the difficult decision, and people know this, to not pay myself in order to pay my team until I could make the math. And I ended the year with a 95% client renewal rate and with a surplus.
Yes. That is phenomenal. Like so many, like ahas was like you the perfect example of you have no choice if you just keep going. And Melva LaJoy, I think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, they think that if I'm facing these setbacks, this must be a sign that it's not for me. And for you in those moments, what mindset shifts did you have to take in order to see that this is where I'm supposed to be? I'm on the right path. And any advice that you can give to other entrepreneurs listening about those mindset shifts?
So here's what I'll say, especially last year, I felt that. Like, am I on the right path? Like, I thought I was
Mm-hmm.
about to blow up
Yeah.
in a way that mattered to me, and it fell and crumbled. And I think a couple of things. I do believe that for me, my mantra is this: the setback is the setup. And sometimes the thing that you want so badly, like, so I thought I wanted growth. The reason why you don't get it, my fellow entrepreneur who is struggling right now, is because you're not ready for it. And so rather than think, because it's easy, right? And the world wants you to think, like, you can't make it, you can't do this. I would invite you to ask yourself this question. So this thing happened. What is the learning? Because if you are delayed, there is work that you need to do. In retrospect, I am so glad, well, not glad, it wasn't fun, but I understand why that deal did not come to fruition for me, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to do some internal work that I needed to do. It allowed me to refine my value proposition. It actually made me stronger. And it also created an environment where I had to ask myself, am I built for this? And the answer for me was yes. And so I just went after it. I put myself in spaces and places that I never would have imagined. Okay. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing, so step one, because you said to be very specific, so I want to honor that, is
Mm-hmm.
rather than think that this is a loss, and I like alliteration, so you're going to hear a lot of that, think of it as a lesson. Think of it as a lesson. Number two, I want everyone hearing me to do this for yourself. I want you to, whether it's your phone, whether it's a journal, I want you to write down all of your wins, every single one, every single one. And I want you to keep it somewhere. For me, I journal, because when we get a loss, we take on the loss so heavily that we think that's all we are. We're a loser. We can't do it. And then we forget about every other win. Like,
Yeah.
when we get wins, even a small win, we forget, like, that was a win. I need you to keep a record of your wins. When you feel weary, I want you to look at your record, because your record proves what you are capable of. And the third thing I think is critical, and there's lots of things, these are just my top three in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think about when I was rebuilding, people were passing me over. I wasn't the new shiny toy. I wasn't fashion forward. I mean, I just am me. I'm Melva LaJoy Legrand, 365, 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it hurt. I have to be honest, it hurt for people to flat out ignore me. And you know what helped me? My tried and true community. I don't know how to say this, but I think sometimes in business, people feel so protective of what they're working on They feel like they have to carry the load by themselves. And so they hustle, right? Every day they hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that, I guarantee you, you're going to burn out. You're going to start resenting the work, and you're going to forget your why. And so when you're in a season of loss, you need people, and I won't call out her name, my best friend, because she's shy, but you need people who will be your feet when you cannot stand. You need that. And I encourage you to, if you have people in your industry, great, because I get it. Some people are worried about competitors, but you got to have your one or the one of one to sustain you when you just feel lost. And I'm sorry, I have another one. The last thing I will say is, if you're an entrepreneur, look, not everybody is going to get your vision. Guess what? Great. It's not for them. It's for you. But the way you know you're on the right path is when you feel, and I mean like in your belly, like you're on fire about what you're doing. Do not ignore your inner fire, even if you're broke. Hi, I was broke. Even if people ignore you. Hi, people ignored me. Even if you get 1,000 no's. Hi, I've gotten 1,000 no's. Because that inner burning, that spark means that you are meant to be a light in your unique way. And it comes. That's what I would say.
Yes. Got us fired up. Yes, I love that. And so we've now gotten to the point where you've helped us understand setbacks in business and really made it plain with your own stories as well and experience. So now I want to talk about the art of pivoting and how do you make that shift and then adapt in business. So, Melva LaJoy, what would you say it means to pivot in business and how do you know when it's time to do so?
I think I'll start with the second part, and that's an excellent question. I think you know when it's time to pivot when you no longer feel that spark. Like you're going through the motions. It's kind of like, I mean, not to take too much of a detour, it's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you no longer feel like you're in alignment. Well, guess what? A business, I call LaJoy my business baby. When we are not aligned, I feel that. And I think what happens, and if we use a love relationship, because it's a great analogy, what do? We say things like, stick with the devil, you know. Oh, I'm so scared to get out there. Well, we do that same process mentally in a business, right? Like if I built a business a certain way and maybe something else isn't interesting, you think, oh, I don't know if I can do it, blah, 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 right? But ultimately, you know you're supposed to be doing it. You know you're supposed to be doing it. You feel it. You feel it, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is when you get to the moment that you make the pivot, remember I like alliteration, so just go with me, folks. Okay. Before you pivot, you have to have a preparation period. Otherwise it's not going to be, look at the alliteration, it's not going to be prosperous. So just like your business, whatever you're doing, you did it because of your why, you did it with intention, you did it for a specific reason. You can't just wake up and not have that same intentionality for your pivot. Otherwise it's going to fall flat. So the same motivation that you had around your original concept, I need you to keep that same energy or more for your pivot. So that's what I would say.
Love that. And you also had a time or season, you also mentioned it a little bit before, after COVID, during COVID, you nearly lost everything. So losing 98% of your business. Can you talk about that experience and some of the strategies that help you rebuild?
Yes, I can. And I don't know why people are out here lying. We all know we lost money. Okay. Unless you were in a certain industry, like I'm just going to keep it real. Unless you were in certain industries, I don't know all of them right now, or unless you're a trust fund kid or whatever the case may be. But guess what? I'm not any of those things. I was in a gathering business, and I don't know the factual number, but hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives because we were gathering, not because of, but gatherings and occasions was not the moment. And I'm in the business of curating moments. So I lost everything. And also, I want to say, just as a backdrop, because it's important to me, is in this season, in addition to watching things dissipate within a month, I remember my last event in, I want to say February 2020, and by March 2020, I believe when the official announcement went out, everything was gone. Yeah. And on the heels of that, my father, my sweet Melvin, at this point, my dad had 6 brain bleeds, 5 strokes, a brain surgery, and dementia. Like, I was going through it. And I set the stage not because I want anyone's sympathy, but to let you know this was, if ever there was a moment for me to quit and give up, it was probably this moment. And yet, I will tell you, for me, my anchor, and I'm going to try not to cry, so I'm glad we're not on video, my anchor in that moment was my father. Because if you've ever watched someone with dementia, I talked about this on social this morning, there is a moment where they know they are changing. And I would ask my dad, like, trying to hold on to who I knew him to be, like, are you scared? Are you, like, I would ask him all of these questions, and I'm paraphrasing here, but one time he said to me when I was feeling really low, you're seeing the COVID things, you're seeing people hoard toilet paper. I mean, it was crazy. We all saw it. Mm-hmm. And I said to Daddy, like, I'm just so lost. And my dad smiled at me. He says, well, I know a thing about being lost. And I just looked at him. And he said, but here's the thing. He's like, I probably won't remember this conversation. And he's like, and that's hard. Mm-hmm. But on a positive side, Melva LaJoy, when I wake up tomorrow, I have another opportunity to begin. And I held on to that through COVID because every day, and my husband can attest to this, I would wake up and I would get dressed because my dad told me that next day or the next day or the next day could be the moment where it all began again. Mm. That's what I would say.
So powerful. Wow. And it's a I think it's a spirit and it's a personality to be able to take things like that and really shift the perspective and how you look at those things. For you, what do you feel like that comes from?
It comes from, I would say, first and foremost, I don't have it that bad. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I really don't. Like, here's the thing. Could I have more money? Could I be skinnier? Could I be this? Could I be that? But you know who had it bad? My great-grandmother, who was a field slave. Mm-hmm. You know who had it really tough? My grandmother, who was a maid, probably my first business advisor, but she was functionally illiterate. They had it bad. And when I didn't know my great-grandmother, but didn't complain. And so when I fix my mouth to complain, and I do complain, I'm not perfect, or when I fix my spirit to not be grateful or feel a certain way, I think about deeply what people who have less did and survived. So how can I not at least attempt to do the same thing when I have clothes that I chose and liked and can afford on my back? I have food in my belly. I have a husband that genuinely loves me. I am still blessed to have my mother alive. Like the list could go on and on and on. So again, you could stay in the mindset of everything you don't have. And I think the challenge of social media is for some people, they're using it as a tool of comparison, or worse, a tool of validation. But I think for me, for the Melva LaJoy Legrand, I gotta thank my ancestors. I gotta thank my mama, because I know who I am. I understand whose I am. And I strive. I do not get it right all the time. I have had a history of depression. I have had a history of emotional eating. I want to be clear. This is not perfection speaking, but when I am clear-headed, I can see how blessed I am. Period. I am blessed when it's sunny and beautiful outside, but you know what? I'm also blessed in the storm, because the storm is part of my story. The storm is part of my armor. The storm is why last night I got a compliment from a client who said, Melva, you're just so calm and so peaceful. You know why? Because I understand all storms pass. For my business owner, you're broke, you lost the contract, an employee left. It passes. It passes. And if you don't believe me, cool, but go to sleep tonight when it's dark. And when you wake up, doesn't the sun rise? There's cycles to this.
Yes. That was a breakthrough for somebody. That is a breakthrough moment. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and even when you talk about the pivots and the things like that are happening in business, and then life is still life in the midst of this. So after pivoting, how do you advise like a business owner ensure that this new direction is sustainable? Because I'm sure after COVID, people are like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm in a better position if something like this happens again.
Well, I want to tell you something that my financial advisor just told me maybe last week, because the world is shifting and I don't have time to get into it, but you all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They said to me, I advise you in my business. I'm like, we're steady. I just hired someone new. We're good. And I'm thinking I'm going to get an A+ for how good I am. And they looked at me and said, I'm going to need you to live like you make 50% less. And I said, say what? Excuse you? I got vacation plans. I got jewelry I'm eyeing. They were like, no, I need you to live like you're earning 50% less. And they had all their reasons why, and I don't want to share it because I definitely am not a financial expert. But I tend to agree with him. And I don't know if I can do 50% because, again, I've got trips. I've got goals. But I will say this. We know time is not promised. We know, I'm saying for the everyday person, that money is not promised. Like nothing is guaranteed. And so what I will say is what last year taught me, because I'm still learning. I mean, I'm grateful to be on the podcast, but I am learning with you, is I would say get your systems in order.
Yeah. Get
your systems in order. And I got to be honest with you. Guess what? Even now, all of my systems are not in order, but I'm on the way. And I would say the other thing is, I think sometimes if your business starts doing well, you might be using that credit card a little more frequently. I want to encourage all of us, and I'm speaking to myself, to have a proper nest egg. And then the last thing I think is important, and call it a business or a life tip. I think I just told somebody maybe 2 days ago, don't get too high up on your high step. Like, don't let your, let's say you pivot and you're booming and all of the things, don't forget who got you there and how you got there. Because here's the thing, I hate to break it to you, life will humble you.
Yes.
And so I think part of pivoting or part of preparing for what's going to happen next, you financially prepare. Absolutely. You prepare in an administrative way. But the last way, and I don't think people do this, is you keep your character in check. Don't lose the humility. Don't lose the intentionality. Don't be so quick to be like, well, I don't have time for this. Well, guess what? Life will humble you. Life will humble you. That's what I think.
That is great advice. And one of the things, Melva LaJoy, you've worked with some phenomenal clients and just done some incredible things. And in the midst of your journey, like, what role has self-advocacy and really just knowing your worth played in rebuilding successfully, and what advice you would give to others around this?
I would say this, one of the best, this may not be a popular answer, but one of the best things I ever did was back in, I don't know if I have the year right. I think I'm going to say 2023. I fired a client. I fired a client, and I fired this client, and they know exactly who they are because they were microaggressive and they were emotionally manipulative. But I want to talk about why I didn't fire them sooner, because I think this is more important. I didn't fire them sooner because I was afraid of what they would say, what people would think, because it was a multi-year agreement, how it would impact my business. But and all of that is real, right? How it would impact my money, blah, 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 blah. All of that's real, except this. They were never in alignment with who I strive to be in business. Otherwise, they would have treated me differently. And the minute I let them go, I got maybe 2 or 3 contracts that was double what they were providing and was more in line with who I want to be in the work. And in that season, the best advice I got was actually from my husband. Hey, Emmanuel. It was from my husband. And he said this because I was like, I don't know. I knew I had to fire them. I knew I had to fire them, right? And I was like, but what will they say? And my husband said to me, he said, dear, they're already talking about you. He's like, you're worried about something that's already happening. And I forget which lady says, let them. I mean, I'm not going to say my husband got it from her, but it's kind of like, let them. And the minute he said that, something unlocked for me. And I sent a note. I think my note, it was a closeout project. And I said, I wish you well. And I closed my laptop. And for me, it was complete. And true to what my husband said, months later, I would hear that they were talking about me. And that was confirmation that I had made the right decision. And so for me, and think about it, that was just 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So I think, to answer your question about worth, I think we all have moments where we're unsure of our worth. We're unsure to make the bold move. And I would say, I want to go back to that inner knowing. We know what we're supposed to do. We know what we're supposed to do. Everybody out here knows what they're supposed to do. And sometimes you make the bold move. And what I have found is when you make the bold move, alliteration, it is the building block. It is a necessary step to get you where you want to be. I had to fire them. Had I not fired them, I wouldn't have had capacity to take on projects that are more aligned to what I want to be doing. They were blocking me from who I could be in business, but my fear was blinding me.
That is big. And speaking of that, when you are facing that decision, okay, I'm going to fire this client, and even talking about the fact that you had to rebuild, can you share some lessons about scaling after the setbacks, like what works and what doesn't work.
I think what works, so this is the simple answer and I'll unpack it. What works is doing what you are uniquely suited to do. What does not work is trying to be a jack of all trades. Doesn't work. Does not work. What works is if you can't, so here's a very specific test or activity for whoever's listening. Hi again. If you cannot tell someone why your business exists and your why, you don't have it. I hate to tell you, you don't have it. If you are fumbling over, I can tell you about the LaJoy of it all. I can tell you why me. Like, if you don't understand your why, think about it. If you don't understand it, why would somebody be brought into it? So the first thing, like business 101, I am pro, like, I didn't always have a business plan, but you know what I always have had? Understanding of my why and understanding why me. If you don't have that, if you are confused about your why and why me, I guarantee you the reason why you're not getting sales or you're not getting traction is because you lack clarity and focus. Because if we're being honest, there are some people for which what they're doing is business because it's fashionable. Business is not fashionable. Business is by design. It is intention. It is a calling. And I want to be 100 with you. It is not for everyone. And that is okay because it is risky. It can be lonely. It doesn't always make money. So you have got to be so clear on your why. And next, why me?
Yes, that is everything. And I think this conversation has just been so transformative, and we've went through all the things. So we've talked about really understanding the setbacks and then how to pivot and adapt and then rebuilding even stronger, like you talked about. And then so now I want to end it with how do we avoid these setbacks in the future and stay resilient? So for you in this process, how did you maintain that resilience, and any advice or daily habits or practices that you'd advise others to take?
Well, yes. And let me say, I didn't always take them, but I believe in the power of rituals. And for me, my ritual, when I am operating at maximum capacity, not necessarily in this order, but it involves faith, a faith practice for me. It involves family, alliteration. Here we go. I had to think about this. And it involves fun. You have got to have, and my European husband taught me this. This is a novel concept in the United States. You got to have fun. You have to rest. You need to take a vacation.
Yeah.
When I met my husband, we're French, and he said, when do you take holiday? And I was like, on the weekend. And he was like, that's actually not what I mean. I mean like a dedicated break.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in business, and I am guilty of this, everybody knows when I work, I am relentless in the work. But, relentless. It is abnormal. I know this. But also abnormal, when I take a break, good luck finding me. I might send glimmers of like proof of life. And I think, I'm just speaking as a Black woman, I think culturally we feel forgotten. I think culturally we feel like we have to carry the weight. And I also think, and I have seen it to be true, we have to be better. I want to be real with you. If you are a Black woman business owner, I don't want to lie to you. We do have to be better. And while all of those things are true, we also need to take breaks. Got to. Have to.
And Melva LaJoy, how do you think, like, because you talk about the importance of, leadership rest, and we talk about taking breaks, like just making this plain, like, how do you feel like this affects that long-term success? And even for you, you're like, good luck finding me when I am resting.
Oh, for me, what I learned, and I do have to give credit to my husband, when I
Mm-hmm.
come back after my break, every year at the end of the year, Emmanuel and I take an end of year trip. And I mean, I forget where my phone is. And when I say serious about the break, we announce it. It is on the website, like serious about the break.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come back, I am so energized and I am so present, and it allows me to deliver what my clients deserve, and that's the best. But when I was working through burnout, and it allows me to show up beyond being my business best. It allows me to show up as a better friend, a better servant. It just restores me. And I think when we don't take the break, or at least in my experience, and I can look at pictures and see where Melva wasn't getting a break, I think I become the sacrificial lamb
Mm-hmm.
where I almost feel broken or depressed, or I'm over drinking, or I'm overeating. And here's what I want you to know. Guess what? All of your business owner, hey, all of the sacrifices you are making, your clients will allow you to continue making. Because you're setting the standard of how they should interact with you. So if you're available 24/7, and I want to be clear because somebody's going to say, well, wait, there are moments when you're available 24/7. That would be true. But but it's not constant, and I choose it, right? You have got to, you asked me, well, what is the tip? The tip is develop your ritual. So you're not saying yes to so much business, but you're saying no to yourself. And everybody's ritual looks different. I can go for a long stretch because I know on the tail end of it is a fabulous vacation. For other people, their ritual may be, I don't know, standard business hours, right? Like, I don't know what the ritual may be, but I know if running ragged can't be the answer.
Right. And I agree. Melva LaJoy, this has been such a joyful conversation, and I want to shift. It really has, and I want to shift into now talking more about the work that you're doing and some of the continued support. So, as I mentioned, this has been great and really laying it out for people. Do you, or what are some ways that you help others or CEOs or business owners embrace their worth?
Well, there's a couple of things, and there's a couple of things I think I'm working on. So,
Okay.
On YouTube, which I need to invest more in, but there is a free masterclass called Mondays with Melva. Again, I said I like alliteration.
Mm-hmm.
And I recorded it maybe 2 years ago completely for free. It was a byproduct of, I think, if I'm being honest, processing some things given my father's passing. And one of the segments, because there's 4 chapters, talks about releasing fear. And so on YouTube, LaJoy Plans, you can find that masterclass, follow the journey, take it as you would like in terms of how much time you want to commit. These are 10-minute real life stories, and see what you discover for yourself. That would be the primary way. I also want to name that, and also season 2 is going to be released, because initially it was for subscribers, and now I just said, like, why don't we just let everybody win? Then I want to say that my business, talk about pivot, is getting ready to rebrand later this year.
Mm-hmm.
And within that rebrand, I am considering, I don't want to be on the hook for this, but I am strongly considering offering executive coaching, because I have been asked more than twice, 20, 30 times. And so I think for me, I struggled with the notion like, oh my gosh, I'm not a certified coach. Right? Talk about like letting something talk you out of it, but it's showing up so much that I realized I don't have to be, and I want to respect the work that coaches do, but I do think there is something I have to say that could support someone on their journey. So that's something I'm considering as well.
Yeah, so everybody listening, you all have to flood Melva LaJoy's inboxes like, do it, do it, do it.
Sure, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Again, for the record, hopefully it won't get edited out. I'm not 100%, but if I do it, like anything, I will be 100%.
Yes, we know of that. And any upcoming events or programs or just anything you would love to share, and just even talking more about the services that you offer.
Sure. So the LaJoy Sphere, I'm so proud of us. We just finished an amazing, beautiful activation for New York Fashion Week for our beloved client, Black Beauty Roster. It was an exhibit featuring the undeniable beauty of Black hair. It was a moment for the culture, so I just want to shout that out. Throughout the year, we are doing some amazing things. One of which I will call out is we are executive producers for a benefit concert. So, talk about a 360 moment for me, since doing concerts was part of what I used to do. So, I'm very excited about that. We are traveling a bunch, etc. Now, in terms of what the LaJoy Sphere is suited to do, I mentioned that we are a comprehensive events management agency. And to make it plain, I will say we do all. We do it well. We do it nationwide, globally, and we do it for organizations whose values match ours, period. And the other thing I will say is that the one thing, because I gotta be clear, because sometimes people contact us for this, the one thing we do not do, and as long as I have breath, we will not be doing, is fundraising. Shout out to all the fundraisers. I don't know how you do it, and I do not want to do it, but shout out to you. And so I would love to hear from clients, potential clients who, be it your conference, your gala, your reception, a bespoke event, an exhibit, etc. Let's talk. We also have a creative services department, be that storytelling, script writing, ghostwriting, shooting commercials. Let's talk. Let's just talk about all of the creative things and see if it's a good fit.
Perfect. And Melva LaJoy, in this process throughout your business, what would you say has been the best risk that you've taken?
Well, what almost like leapt out of my throat was this: not quitting when my father passed. My dad's last words to me, I was laying on the side of him, and I was listening to his faint heartbeat. And my dad's eyes closed for 1 week until he passed. He never opened them again. And so I said to my dad, because they say the hearing, and I'm choosing to believe this is true, they say the hearing is the last thing to go. And so I said to my dad, so we would read to my dad, we would do all of these things. And I said, Dad, like, how am I going to do this? I can't do this without you. What am I going to do? And he faintly said, everything. My dad passed the next day.
Wow.
So, and it rocked my world. Anybody who knows me knows I still talk about my dad obsessively. It rocked my world. And I think I just wanted to say, what's the point? Because grief is a journey that I don't wish on anyone, and yet we're all going to experience it. And what I want to tell you is I temporarily lost myself in the grief depression, but somehow I held on to my dad's last words like it was the most precious treasure. And in this season, even as I get ready to rebrand, do different things, when I feel my most afraid, I remember that my dad's last words were that his daughter, his namesake, was suited for all of it, everything.
Melva LaJoy, thank you for sharing that and just being so transparent in your story and just vulnerable in your story. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about us in community and just like as entrepreneurs, just getting to share our story. And with you continue to do everything and pressing forward, my final question is what does it mean to you now to be Black in business?
Mm, well, I wrote something recently and I said, I am destined, excellent, and inevitable. DEI.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, I think what it means to be alive, to be Black, and to be in business is that I am meant to serve, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. And so for me, I want to be in the business of maximizing on impact and service through using the creative arts for my clients. And if I do that, when I walk away, I believe I can authentically say, she didn't do it all perfectly, but job well done. And the second thing I will say is to be alive, to be Black, to be in business means I have a responsibility to share everything I know. Yes, we should share, but I should say you also have a responsibility to share every mistake. I think part of the problem is we have so many false idols, like business owners who just popped up or overnight success, and there can be lessons in that. But I want people to know that it was hard. I want you to know that during COVID, I ate like it was a problem and drank a bottle of champagne in my pajamas. I want you to know that I have felt afraid. I want you to know that. But I also want you to know that when you have that fire, and I have that fire, it is worth it. And if you choose it, and you can't like put a pinky toe in. If you choose it and you go all in, life will meet you there.
Yes. Melva LaJoy, how can people find you, connect with you, and support you?
I would say the best way to be in community with me is two ways. LinkedIn, I know that's not sexy, but it's true. LinkedIn, Melva LaJoy Legrand, and then on a day-to-day, Instagram at BELAJOYFUL. Be LaJoyful. And I also want to say that, you know how people are like, hit me up, and then you never hear from them. I am blessed to have a wonderful company. Shout out to Woke Media, who supports my social media, but my writing is my own. And if you write me directly, I will get back to you, even if it takes me a moment. So I never want you to think, I think that's important that people know, no, you're dealing with Melva LaJoy Legrand. She does the best she can. Just give her a second. But if you hit me up with a question, I will connect you. I will connect with you, rather. Excuse me.
Yes. And we'll be sure to put those things in the show notes. And yes, Melva LaJoy, thank you so much for such a beautiful, joyful conversation. And then also pouring into our audience, being transparent in your journey and story and keeping it real and being on the Black to Business podcast.
You are so very welcome. I'm so grateful. Stay encouraged. And I don't know when this is coming out, but for now I'll say Happy Black History Month.
This conversation was everything, because today we didn't just talk about setbacks. We flipped the script and showed you how to turn them into stepping stones. And Melva LaJoy dropped so many major gems on resilience, strategic pivots, and making the right moves when things don't go as planned. So whether it's financial losses, shifting directions, or rebuilding from scratch, you now have the tools to bounce back smarter and stronger. And listen, you are not alone in this journey. The Black to Business family is all about growth. We're all about empowerment, and we're all about leveling up. So every time you tap in, you're investing in your success and in the future of Black entrepreneurship. Now, for more on today's episode and the resources mentioned, head over to blacktobusiness.com/239. And of course, make sure you tune in back here next week, same time, same place. But until then, let's keep building boldly and let's keep pushing the culture forward. Later.